Hey, what's up, man? You all right?
Yeah, man, I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. You look really serious.
Yeah, I was really serious, but now I'm all right. It was a
I'm
troubling time.
fine. I'm fine, but I'm dying. So yeah. Zooming in, there's a few things you can do, don't there? Like, when people look
Yeah,
back at you, because I forget I can see you in the corner and you can see me in the corner, but obviously on the actual video on YouTube, it's one or the other in it, not both.
absolutely. Just from I guess when it's noticing sound from one of the screens.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
I
think
could be
so.
doing shit like this, like to you, while you're talking, and no one would ever know except you.
Having a danger wank in the bits where I'm speaking, man.
I've got like 5 seconds until he pauses.
Oh shit! It just started up about consciousness, right? I've got enough time. It's not as exciting because he's obviously going to keep rambling for that amount of time. So
Yeah.
I've easily got 30 seconds that it takes.
Yeah, or like 20 seconds and then 5 seconds for the wipe up or something.
Yeah, for the crying and then
An
back to
additional,
normal.
yeah, final 5 seconds for like
Yeah.
resuming, getting your face back.
Yeah. Just re-acclimatizing with the idea that my father still don't love me, and then that's it. And that's it. Right, normality again.
Yeah. Well, like the second that you finish,
Yeah.
like those sort of thoughts start popping into your head.
Just deeply psychically wounded. I'm just damaged. Just damaged good.
Yeah. Every single time something great happens to you, or you're in a blissful state, immediately afterwards you reset back to your childhood and trauma. And...
That's it. Well, it's not far off, is it? Unfortunately, it's alarmingly true a lot of the time for people. Like, it's funny because it's a caricature of a lot of people that I do know that
Yeah.
are literally like that. Just fragile, mate. You know, a lot of people seem to be anyway, and it could be just me, but like very fragile, can be slighted very easily.
Yeah, that's probably a sign of someone who probably hasn't got their shit together all that well when they can be offended or slighted incredibly easy.
Mm. Oh, it's like when people get someone's like threatened by somebody else, or someone else is doing something and they don't like it, and then it comes out and you just being a knob to that person, like in shitty passive aggressive ways and shit like that. And like it all leads back from not being comfortable in yourself in some way, or some aspect of yourself or your life, or something you're neglecting. And you see it in yourself and you're like, well, I don't want to deal with that right now. And then you, without realizing, push it onto other people. And then, like I said, you can attack that. You can physically strike that person in the face. And then it's like, right, well, you're some embodied, like a real, tangible, real world thing that I can strike and shout at and spit on and shit like that. And then it's like, well, there you go. That's what I'm going to do. Because you're
Yeah,
so hard on yourself inside, because you've either fucked up, made mistakes, not been proactive, whatever it is, prevention and not all that sort of shit. And it seems to come out, unfortunately, in these little like any way you can, in these little interpersonal relationships where you can just be a dick to someone for very little.
yeah, and it can be hard on themselves inside, but then also very hard outside. You know, very hard on the outside as they're about to meet that hooker down.
I was about to enter it, yeah.
Yeah,
Very hard. Anyway, why does it all go back to that? Why don't you just just get it out of the systems right at the start and just shout like dick.
yeah.
Erect dicks. Why is it? Why have I got to bring it back to that? Like I was talking about the barge pole or something last time, or one of them where it was like, oh, a 10-inch telescope, and I just couldn't. I had a little game with myself mentally where it was like, just don't mention like erect penises. Don't do it. And then I failed straight away. Like I was like in my head, I was like, oh, don't say it. No, definitely don't make a penis joke. And then you see in the video, I just start laughing, and I'm like, a 10-inch telescope. And I start smiling and shit. Where it's like, well, that's it now. I'm going to mention it.
I don't think you should fight it, man. Don't try and hold it back because let's be honest, it is funny. Erect penises are funny.
Extremely funny. Can you hear my dog barking? By the way, she's barking downstairs.
Yeah, what's she annoyed at?
I
Did
don't
she
know.
hear us talking about erect penises?
Yeah, it seems to have stopped now. Yeah, just I'm in the house obviously by myself, and if someone's knocked at the door or something, they go wild. I can't stand it. Absolutely mental when someone knocks at the door. Anyway, yeah, so I can just hear her, and then obviously because I've got my earphones in the microphone, it's quite sensitive, and I can sort of like just hear her in the background downstairs. Right, so this we spoke about at the end of the last episode, I got not, it wasn't deep into the idea. I'll explain sort of thing. But I did a bit of research on white holes, basically because I wanted to know if there was, just wanted to know, I wanted to learn about it basically.
Mm.
I wanted to find a load of, find out as much as I could about it, because I saw it was like a meme or like a little thing on I think it was like Evolve and Ascend on Facebook, something like that. One of the sort of spiritual Facebook pages that puts up like inspirational messages or like motivated messages about spirituality and life and stuff like that. And it was one that said the opposite of a black hole. I should have written that down actually. So the opposite of a black hole, which sucks in matter and light, would be a white hole that expels energy and matter into this time, sort of thing. And in my head, I went just down this rabbit hole in my head where it was like, oh, what if like the driving force of human consciousness was from this, from some sort of a power that this white hole had, and then deeper and deeper and deeper. And I'll summarize right at the end, sort of thing, because it just, sometimes it's absolute gibberish, and then you're in your head because it makes sense in your limited understanding of these concepts. Like it seemed to like make a very nicely rounded package of all the ideas that sort of float around. So
it is. Well, yeah, it is appealing. It's a very visual and vivid idea, that exactly just explaining a black hole and then kind of almost the exact reverse of that. That's pretty visual. You don't even really need to give too much of an explanation as to what that could be, for at least it to spark some sort of imagination or creativity, or digging deeper. Like that's pretty cool, man.
Absolutely, man. Well, it's a really easy concept to grasp, because it seems to be, there's obviously certain laws of the universe and laws of the nature, and I obviously don't claim to know them. But in this situation, somebody to have a theoretical concept of even what black holes is obviously ridiculous, because nobody in the world understands how they work and all that. Oh, excuse me. But the white hole is just the opposite. So it's one of them where people, if there's push, there's pull. Every action has an opposite reaction, and it seems to be one of the sort of laws of the universe that if there's a black hole, then there sort of must be something that we would classify, something we would define as a white hole that exists somewhere like that. And there's quite a few examples of it in fiction. But what I found when I was looking into it was basically that the idea of a white hole, as in the opposite of a black hole, or something that would operate like that, would be like a wormhole. That black holes suck stuff in, and then you re-assimilate it in the same way somewhere else from the exit point, like the white hole. And basically, white hole and wormhole are pretty much interchangeable where it was convenient, and they were pretty much their concept of white hole or wormhole or whatever it was just seemed to suit the story. And if there was really anything that contradicted or made like rational disproof of the argument, it was just like artistic license, like we don't care, sort of thing.
Right.
But in sci-fi, more than really any other genre, a lot of people that are sci-fi writers are often like fans in real life. Like Graham Hancock, the archaeologist, historian guy. He's an author, basically. I don't think he was ever scientifically an archaeologist or anything like that. But he started to write fiction because he was getting a lot of criticism about some of his intellectual work, and then people were trying to like pick apart at all sorts of minor little things. So he basically started to write fiction, but then based it on really objective truths and realities and stuff that he's like observed and learned about in his life. Seems to be a really sort of similar thing with wormholes and white holes. That especially sci-fi in particular, there seems to be a lot of fiction that is directly based on really solid, really accurate, like real world in inverted commas science. And that's what happens basically in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There's an alien race that uses matter ejected from a white hole to create the world. And that was a really quite a sort of a much more realistic interpretation of a white hole, because of the there's a spaghettification effect basically when you get close to the event horizon of a black hole. And there's a certain point where obviously like matter can't escape anymore, and I believe light as well. But I think that might be one of those things that people sort of, it's like general ignorance. People think, well, even light can't escape the surface and all that. But we do see light, I think, or some sort of a radiation, maybe like a Hawking radiation or something that's emitted from black holes. And I think we can sort of detect it. And then we use that process of gravitational lensing to see like into the heart of where the supermassive black holes are. The galaxies and the sort of objects in between our direct line of sight become warped and everything, so they can see them that way as well. So like, obviously I don't know whether, you know, light can't escape. I don't know whether that's one of those things you'd hear of on like QI and stuff. But yeah, the idea between ejecting the matter on the other side is pretty much, or at least assimilating it in an identical way, would be sort of bullshit, because closer to the event horizon and things become a singularity. And again, this is just, it could be gibberish for all I know as well, because I'd like to preface the entire thing with I ain't got a fucking clue about any of it, but I don't comprehend it in any way, obviously, and nobody does either. Anybody that says they does as well is obviously a bit of a liar. So in that sort of a way, it doesn't assimilate the information or the matter on the opposite side in the white hole in the same way. It's called spaghettification, and basically it's like, exactly, that's spaghettification is a really physical and a really accurate way of sort of describing it. It pulls things into a single strand sort of thing, which destroys the information or the entropy or whatever that was in the existing matter. So in fiction, like I said, white holes and then wormholes, interchangeable just wherever's convenient. Yeah. And the reality of them, basically, scientifically, is that they're like, you know, there's a really strong against argument. And it's that they're a hypothetical region of space-time. They're the opposite of a black hole, which you can basically just infer from the values in the equation. So like neutrinos were first theorized by using the existing equations for the speed of light to infer what a faster than light particle would look like theoretically. Do you know what I mean? Like they use the same equations to, you know, if c is the constant of the speed of light and everything, they add all the equations and one constant and just enough information to plug in something that traveled faster than that, and then sort of looked at what came out of those equations and then theorized, and then they started to call that a neutrino. And then they found a neutrino, and at CERN they found the particle traveled faster than the speed of light, called a neutrino, and it had a very tiny mass as well, which contravenes one of the laws of the universe, that anything that travels at the speed of light can't have a mass, and everything else. Like, it was greatly exaggerated, I believe, and there's an entire thing you can find online called the OPERA experiments at CERN, and there's like basically found a thing that's got a bit of mass and traveled faster than the speed of light, which is mental. But yeah, the against one is like, there is no known physical processes in which a white hole can be created. No one has ever been observed, and that it's just purely hypothetical. So it only exists through inference in what we can sort of deduct, like logically and rationally through mathematical equations that do exist for the black holes that we have observed. And then it's like every force has an equal and opposite reaction. So we only view a really tiny part of the sky. And if you check out something called Worldwide Telescope, which is like an app you can get on, I've got Windows 10, so whatever, you know, like on the App Store, or I think it was the Google Chrome store I got it from. But yeah, Worldwide Telescope. It's like this mind-blowing 3D map. I think I've shown it to you before. This like map of the universe where the Earth's a ball, and you can see all the stars and galaxies, like the physical matter, as we've looked out. And if you zoom out enough, it looks like the wings of a butterfly or something like that from the center, and we can see sort of the edges a little bit. But like in terms of where we've looked in the sky, like, you know, from what you see from the Earth outwards is sort of a sphere. We've seen like less than 1% of the inside of the sphere. Like a tiny fraction, a tiny fraction of everything that's there. Like I said, the Worldwide Telescope, it's just, I'm sort of a visual guy, do you know what I mean? I've sort of learned things quicker through seeing it, or seeing like visual representations of something, and that's one of them, Worldwide Telescope. So like when you see outwards, you see the tiny amount of stuff that we've actually looked at. It's one of them situations we just might have missed it. It's perfectly legitimate that we don't know what we're looking for. We've already seen them, and we've just missed it. And then because obviously we look at such a tiny spot, it becomes more and more possible that that's like pretty much a theory. Now, there's the my last bit before I'll just shut up for 5 minutes. But the last one was that I don't understand this one at all. Obviously, a black hole emits a Hawking radiation to come to thermal equilibrium. And I'm just reading this straight off. And apparently, the reverse of a black hole in thermal equilibrium is a black hole in thermal equilibrium. And Stephen Hawking said that implies that a black and white hole are the same objects. So they're the same sort of a thing, basically.
You've just blown my mind.
Boom. There you go. So there's 4 or 5 different things. What do you reckon?
Well, for starters, the last point obviously Mr. Hawking seems to have some sort of grasp on that. Yet I don't know really how to process that. I think visually, I learn probably learn the best visually. Kind of like as soon as you see an image, it could be a really complex idea that it's trying to articulate, but you're like, that is perfect. I immediately know more about this just because I've seen like a random meme or a little image. The Worldwide Telescope one's awesome for that. You should definitely check it out if you've not seen it. Has it been? So this is obviously just hypothetical. It's a theory. How is it viewed in sort of mainstream sort of academia and physicists and astronomers and stuff like that?
Well, apparently, do you know what entropy is? Have you heard of the? And again,
is that some law of thermodynamics?
Yeah, it basically means disorder. So the mainstream view on entropy is that a white hole it either increases or decreases entropy, which contravenes the second law of thermodynamics, which can't do it, sort of thing, because it would eject disorder into the unit, or one of them. It either increases or decreases entropy, and that's not allowed.
Isn't the law something along the lines of it's everything must go from order to disorder?
Yes,
or something along those lines.
Yeah, and it like, I don't know. Again, I've written this down somewhere. I'm not sure whether it was which one it is. Either decreases or increases entropy, and it can't really do that. And again, we've seen in sort of theoretical and physics and all sort of modern physics, nothing that contravenes the laws of thermodynamics. So the laws, so the some of the underlying fundamental laws of the universe. So something that would contravene them would be like a perpetual motion machine or something like that. That would it just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like, you can't create matter from nothing. Only, you can't create energy, only transform it. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's a load of those ones that do really apply for white holes. And the big against argument basically for something existing, or there's 3 or 4. It's so far purely hypothetical. They've only we sort of theorized it through inference. There's no known physical processes through which a white hole could be formed. None have ever been observed. And then Stephen Hawking, who's badass on the guitar now, says that Hawking radiation actually creates thermodynamic equilibrium, which would explain where people get the idea of a white hole from, if you know what I mean, where equal and opposite reaction is what seems to be most people's logic, especially in the fiction, seems to be people's sort of go-to idea, or the strongest one of the ideas. And then interestingly as well, which is my next sort of point with it, it was basically a theory as to the origins of the universe, and that was one of many theories, I suppose. Far too many to talk about accurately, but one of them was a white hole sucked in matter from a different universe, blew it out into ours, or ours very loosely. We can't see the edges of our universe, obviously. So it could be the same thing or something like that. It could be some constantly changing, morphing toroid of shapes and colors and shit. It could be all the same thing, and like the boundary between there's no edge of our universe, obviously, because it's expanding. So it could be some cosmic knot, like a splice, a really complicated one that you'd learn in I don't know,
Cub Scouts.
Yeah, in the Brownies or something like that. Some super complicated knot of every galaxy having a supermassive black hole at the center through gravitational forces that just can't go anywhere, and it's just pushed out into another universe elsewhere and shit like that. And that as an idea for us is awesome because it makes sense. It doesn't make sense in the theory, and nobody really the scientists and the physicists or whatever don't generally agree that's what it is, but it's a legitimate theory. And it sort of blew my mind. I was like, because I was sat there thinking that if the Big Bang could be accounted for by a white hole, apart from it just being relatively plausible to me anyway, the hippie part of my mind was right, so
whoa.
Yeah, boom. So human consciousness can sort of almost manifest and affect matter in the real world, sort of thing, despite being immaterial itself. And there actually being quite a bridge between mind and body being quite definite, but human mind in particular, you can affect stuff around you, sort of thing, by willpower and all the rest. I spiraled, like when you go further and further and further into these ideas, and then like 5 minutes later, I had a fully developed narrative, where time was an illusion. Each black hole simultaneously in a distant past and deep in space was some cosmic origin point for the deepest levels of human consciousness, which gave humans the power to manifest and affect matter with only their minds in this reality now. And it's all fucking gibberish, by the way. It's absolute fucking loot gibberish, but that's what I was thinking. And then I was like, oh, it was like a eureka moment for a stupid person. Because I'm not basing it on the objective facts of anything, or something that you could claim to be like an observed. It's all theory. So it just everything just clicked in within my obviously deeply flawed understanding of these concepts. So then for me, it appeared to be a eureka moment where I'd got maybe the tiniest glimpse into the deeper workings of the universe, and actually all I was doing was proactively creating a story whereby that had happened, and then telling myself it was true.
But those moments, or those eureka moments, if you swap them for, say, like, can you imagine moments, like, can you imagine if that was the case? Like, that sounds pretty fucking cool.
If that was what it was, that would be amazing. It seems to be one of them, though, where it's man's nature to question shit, but never to find anything out. I think that's a part of it. I think that's one of the big things, is that we're finding it more and more in science, obviously, in the world of string theories and nth dimensions and quantum mechanics and quantum this and quantum that actually, like, deeply embedded in all of the laws of the universe is some sort of a chaos, some entropy, some disordered thing that doesn't follow any of the laws or any of the rules or any of it. And what we observe and what we can interact with is often the very surface level of things that follow the laws. Whereas if you get into the realms are very big and the realms are very small, obviously in quantum terms, all those rules fall to pieces, and there seems to be some sort of a very chaotic force that seems to be driving a lot of that stuff forward, or stuff that doesn't make sense to us, at least. And I think that's a part of it, man, just in your life and shit as well. Like, absolutely random things can happen that can change. You can meet people absolutely randomly, and then it spirals out and changes everything. And I think more than we'd like to admit, a lot of our life is governed by quite random events.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like every single moment of your day is a fork in the road between a choice, like yes or no. And obviously, you don't really think about the vast majority of those forks in the road as anything significant. Maybe they weren't, but maybe some of them that you said no to, that you can't apply any significance to them, is because you didn't see what was the possibility of yes. And so, like, if you think, like, every single day there will be some moment of significance across your year, there'll be like probably 5 or 6 major moments that could absolutely turn everything. And a lot of those fork in the roads could be brought to you through chance. Obviously, you can increase or decrease the opportunity that you're going to get good or bad things happening to you by your behavior, or by who you hang around with, or where you live, or, what sort of activities you do. You're going to, like, I'm probably not going to drown in the Pacific Ocean tomorrow, because I'm probably not going to be swimming in the Pacific Ocean. So
cancel that trip, man.
Yeah, there's not an opportunity for anything to happen. But I can increase, if I'd like to, my opportunities of drowning by going in the swimming in the sea every day. Like, that would massively increase that. And so obviously there is definite elements of chance, but there's also a measure, I'd like to believe anyway, of sort of willpower and some semblance of small control. And even if those events are brought to you by chance, the thing that you do have the control of is the yes or no point. Like, the decision and the choice probably is the only thing that any of us really have as far as determining our lives and where we go.
Yeah, well, that is pretty much it, isn't it? In a nutshell, obviously. That's all you... I'm trying not to make it sound so depressing, man, but, like, that's all you've got. All you have is those choices.
That's not depressing. If you can totally think about that in a positive light, because you do get to say yes to the stuff that you want to say yes to. I mean, it's depressing. It can be either. It can be either, can't it? If you're a no person, then it can be depressing. If you're a yes person, then it can be awesome because look at all the choices that I get to make. And just in the way that, you know, if you were look at it as depressing, you know, you maybe more of those opportunities are going to be missed because maybe you do align more naturally with no. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like if you align more with like a positive mindset and you do try and seize the day and take every opportunity that comes your way, you probably are going to therefore get more opportunities as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think if you just say yes a lot, that's what it comes down to. Really, like yes is often like a good or a positive thing, unless it's a negative question to start off with. You know what I mean? Like, do you want a punch in the face? And you say yes, then obviously that's a bad decision. But yeah, I know what you mean. It comes not necessarily yes and no, but it comes down to like positive or negative decisions, doesn't it? Or like
good or evil. What we interpret to be good or evil, the right or the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, and then further to that, just further down, if you remove the sort of concepts from it, it's just cause and effect. It's just if I throw the ball will fly that way. That's all it is. Like if you see it on that sort of level without any of the sort of ego or any of the human concepts attached, then yeah, it's just someone says, "Do you want to go on holiday next week?" and you say yes, then your physical body will be there next week. That's it. And then you sort of apply to it. I suppose if you look at it as negative, then it'll take on negative qualities, won't it? Like that's how you affect matter. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily with, you know, willpower is like the decision to, or the ability to make decisions in the first place is obviously absolute. Like it's one of the most fundamental differences, I suppose, between conscious animals and or conscious people and then animals. But I mean, in terms of some sort of even a control over that, just think about that in general. Like you've got the ability to choose. That separates you from fucking everything. Do you know what I mean? And I suppose to an extent, other animals make choices and stuff, but we're fully aware of it. Or like, you know, you've got a mind to. Do you know what I mean? Like it's strange when you think about it, man. Just that you can do whatever you want. Like you can make those decisions at any time. Like right now, I could say sentences of words that I've never said before. I know that I can act in a way I've never acted before, and I can go out into the world and I could do great evil and harm and hurt and pain, or the opposite. At any one point, like it's a strange situation. I don't know whether that's just sort of, I don't know. If you believe in destiny or fate or something, then none of that's real. Like you can't do any of that, and there's a predetermined path or something. I suppose it's only necessarily our philosophical standpoint that believes that people do have free will or do have the decision to choose in them situations.
Yeah, definitely. It obviously is a philosophical question. I don't know if it necessarily has an objective right answer, whether there is fate and destiny and whether there's free will or not. The thing is, I don't see what the benefit is to me as an individual to subscribe to the belief that I can't control anything, so why bother? Like, there's no benefit in that. So I think that it makes sense for me, at least, to believe, you know, that I do have that choice over right and wrong, good and evil, yes or no, because then I can do it, or at least I can think that I can do it. And I don't know, because if it is right, then I guess I was right and I'm doing it. And if it's wrong, like it doesn't seem to have affected me negatively anyway. Like, do you know what I mean? That's probably a bad way to articulate that concept, but I just don't see the negative outcome for me as an individual by believing in that I have free will and choice. I only see a negative outcome by believing in that I don't have free will, and therefore I choose to believe that I do.
Yeah. The thing is, I agree with you on that as well. And obviously, it's a massively empowering idea, even if it is just an, you know, if ideas are illusions or whatever. I don't know. It's a bit deep, but even if it's not that to be empowered by that sort of an idea is so it gives you a sense of self-belief, or it puts you in different situations that generally do tend to be more beneficial. And again, I agree with you. I think the devil's advocate point of view would be that if you did subscribe to any of the major religions or anything, like if you had, I mean, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, any of those sort of things, if you did believe in fate and karma, I guess I believe in, but fate or destiny, then you as a human being, you'd be involved in from this divine, omnipotent creature. And then
the programmer,
a part of being part of that plan and that bigger picture of this, like all-knowing, all-wise, like all-powerful being or a god, that a part of that and to fully subscribe would be then to sort of like almost give up a little bit, or to abandon, or not to hold so tightly this idea that you do have free will and willpower and that you can affect change in your life as much as people are capable of it. And if you subscribe to that sort of a mindset or that sort of a philosophy, a big part of it would sort of not be holding those ideas so close to you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can probably boil it down to something quite simple. Like if you're going go-karting and it's a two-seater go-kart, is it more fun to be in the passenger seat or is it more fun to be in the driver's seat? Like whether you're shit at it or not, you know, whether you crash or not, I did it. I turned that, you know, left turn, I turned the right turn. I fucking smashed past poor people and then flipped them off as I went past with a massive grin on my face and then stormed as the checkered flag said that I was the winner. Like, there's the potential there for greatness. I don't see really what potential there is for greatness if you were always destined to do something. Like,
yeah, or the idea of greatness is, yeah. And again, the problem with this is, I agree with you. Do you know what I mean? Like, unless you're in the passenger seat and you're stealing the hat of other people in passenger seats, or drivers of the other cars, obviously, in this case, that is awesome. Take that hat. A game where the rules are the game. Like the name of the game are also the rules.
Yeah, we had several conversations about take the hat and how to bring it to the world and what would the rules be. And it's like, stop trying to make it complicated. It's take the hat. So basically, we were at a festival recently and it was pretty late. We'd had a few beers and we went on the dodgems or bumper cars, whatever you want to call them. And it was pretty busy, so there's a lot of people on. However, we decided to make it kind of all about ourselves, and there was 6 of us, say 2 people in a car, 1 person would drive, and the other one would be the, what was it, the hat snatcher?
The snatcher, yeah.
Yeah, the snatcher. And so that person would proceed to stand up and try and get the hat of the person who was driving on the other 2 teams, and whoever ended with the most hats, or whoever was the last person to wear the hat as we left the dodgems and the music went off, then they would win. And it was pretty fucking fun. Take the hat.
Yeah, there's a lot of advanced shit going down with people who are wearing the hat, like moving the bill out of the way, and it was funny.
Strategy, like driving around the outside, you know, like completely around the outside, and keep the snatcher or the hat wearer, if you're winning, keep them on the outside. So you'd have to pull some crazy, maybe even double team maneuver to even get near them. Yeah, there was a lot of intricate and hilarious strategy involved.
Remember that guy that was that went on by himself? That was so funny because
it was so tragic yet hilarious at the same time.
Then he bought the token and then he went and sat in the car, and then it looked like there was groups of people that were stood like we were, eating food or doing whatever, just sort of having a drink or something near the dodgems, so that other people looked like they might get on, and then no one did. And then all the people that looked like they would get on the car began to stare and laugh at the guy that was just sat by himself. And then the operator dude, he's either a legend or an idiot. I don't know which one it was, and I'm still undecided. Blasted the guy with Guns N' Roses super loud, so he sat in the car alone, waiting for other people to, obviously embarrassed, obviously aware that everyone was laughing at him. Just Guns N' Roses at like cinema volume. Just, oh my God. And it was so funny. And then he drove around alone by himself around on the outside of the car and just didn't look at anyone. Didn't make eye contact with anyone. He knew what happened, and we knew he knew as well. My God, it was so funny.
It was like, what, 10:30 in the morning or like 11 a.m. or something. like well before you'd even expect anyone to choose to go on a fairground ride at a festival.
It wasn't Dodgems o'clock, was it?
No, definitely not. And he just proceeded to drive around in like a figure eight or just in circles around like all the stationary cars that no one else had joined him on. It was so bizarre. Like, yeah, I didn't know whether to like feel sorry for him or to laugh. It was.
Yeah, so you chose laughter, as we all did, as did everyone else, man. It was hilarious.
Heavy as well. Like on the 5 is indifferent or like in the middle and not undecided, and 0 is tragedy, and 10 is hilarity. Like it probably got to 11 or 12 for us.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, wasn't it? I just, he was having such a different time, like getting blasted by Guns N' Roses, so loud. It was like literally like a scary film or something in the cinema, and it was loud. Like when it goes 10 out of 10. Oh, what an idiot! But there were so many things that were wrong with it, but then it was also kind of hard. On the flip side of it, it was kind of harsh of it. Not just us, obviously. There's 6 or 7 of us, but then there was separate groups of people that had all noticed. That were all doing the same sort of thing, like sitting down on the edges of a car arena or whatever, and just laughing at him. So it was a bit of a group think, really. It was like a definite. Maybe if 1 or 2 people had stood up for him, the rest of us would have all shut up. But
I think maybe we're placing too much emphasis on maybe him being some sort of little, creature that can't defend himself. If I'm fucking on the
little gremlin,
we're like applying like a level of sympathy to him that perhaps doesn't even need to be needed. If I'm on the fucking Dodgems on my own, I'm going to be self-aware that that's a hilarious or stupid thing to be doing. Bumper cars, into the stationary cars, like. I don't know. I think people have got to be able to laugh at themselves and be aware that that if people are laughing, he's brought joy to people.
That's a very optimistic way of looking at it, man. It's just like
it wasn't.
Again, I agree, but I think I don't know, mate. I just, sometimes there's a filter for me where I'm like, yeah, probably just don't do that. Like maybe that might not end that well. Do you know what I mean? There's a good chance you might embarrass yourself. I just don't think he might have even thought. I don't know, or. Might have been a few beers deep or something else. I don't know. But
maybe he was just an absolute hero who was still partying from the night before. Like we'd fucking cancelled at 2 or 3 in the morning, gone to our tents, and he was like, "Fuck this! I'm waiting for the Dodgems to reopen at 10:30."
Yeah, maybe he was like, he told all his friends that he was with at the time that I'll meet you at the Dodgems at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, and then realised that they were all like a drug hallucination and that. They were all with him on the cars. Like, why aren't you moving around, Danny? Like, because I don't exist. Listen to fucking Welcome to the Jungle at 11 out of 10. Fucking 10:20 a.m. high as a kite, you idiot.
Maybe most of his friends are actually stationary Dodgems cars.
They come in fancy dress. It was like the best fancy dress you've ever seen. Like they look like real cars.
Yeah. He was the only one who wasn't dressed up, and so we only saw one person on the Dodgems.
Oh, and the joke's all on us. Like, they're laughing. This is what we wanted.
Yeah. If you are that guy, by the way, get in contact with us because that's fucking hilarious. You know who you are.
I know. That'd be the best thing. Like if we've just been punked real bad by this guy.
Oh, we're on MTV.
Oh, can you imagine? Someone just pops out of this wardrobe here on my right.
Right. Hi, you're on. No, look, if you are that guy, please fucking send us a message or get in contact with us somehow, and we will get you on the podcast. And you can tell your story from your point of view, because I'm sure it is either incredibly tragic or heroic, and I don't really care which, because it'd be not funny. One of them wouldn't be funny, but it would make for an interesting conversation, and we'll give you your very own episode. So get in contact with us.
Please do. That'd be amazing. I'd love to hear from you, or maybe I don't know his name, obviously. Mate,
Axel.
that'd be incredible.
Let's call him Axel.
Yeah. So anyway, back to
how do we get on to Take the Hat?
You made some analogy about having decisions in your life, and like you'd rather be the driver of the Dodgems car than the passenger. And then I said, unless you're the snatcher and you've got a chance to like whip the hat and win the game, or whatever I said. And then that was it. That was about 20 minutes ago. Anyway, yeah, no, the white holes again. I've got two more things that I sort of had and I've thought about it. Oh no, just no, in fact, there's one more. They sort of tied together. So after researching inside the white holes, in some again, some in fiction and some in like reality or within modern science, whatever you want to call it. I don't know the name for what it'd fall under, like theoretical physics, probably. White holes. So I did a little bit of research, and again in the fiction, it was I forget the name of the aliens. But there's an alien race in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that were basically creating their worlds from like matter expelled from the white hole, and then wormholes in general are all over the place. But my main sort of thought was that there's a load, like an unbelievable amount of parallels between modern theoretical science, especially quantum mechanics, and some of the weirder ones, and a religion. So science seems to be blurring the lines between the rational laws of the universe, and then all this like really weird tiny world of quantum mechanics, and this worldview that's increasingly resembles a religion. And I mean by that like they demonize all other religions, or seem to take some sort of a perverse pleasure in saying that they've already disproved Christianity or whatever it is. They seem to get jealous of other systems when somebody else seems to have it all like figured it out. Like I said, they take a bit of a pleasure in like disproving stuff. There's a narrative to explain as origin, like a literal creation story involving a big bang or a white hole or whatever that we all basically just sprayed out of. It has its own code of ethics. It has expected ways to behave and think and analyze stuff. And the crux of it all is that there's no proof or evidence of it whatsoever. And every one of these, like especially theoretical theories, there's more proof that God exists, like the Christian God existed, than there is in any of modern science. Which led me on to there's a few websites deep. If you don't understand something, you accept it as the truth. You are simply a believer. And I don't understand any of the theoretical physics that I would use to describe my worldview or to describe some of the physical world that we see around us and some of the stuff we observe, the physical body, any of that shit. We don't know a fucking thing about it. And in exactly the same way as a believer, as somebody who, fully subscribes to a religion or some doctrine or something that says it has it all figured out, that we would throw ridicule at. Nobody understands quantum physics. Nobody on the planet right now, nobody understands black holes, like not a single person. And therefore we're just believers of science as a religion.
Yeah, I think the idea behind that as well, like subscribing to the doctrine of science and not being, I think you've still got to apply your questioning tendencies and apply the same rigorous questioning that you would to any religion. You've got to apply that to science and your own beliefs as well. I can't remember who said it, but somebody came up with quite a cool idea that I kind of align with as well, which is someone asked them, what are your beliefs? And they replied with, I don't really have any beliefs. I just have ideas. And I quite like that, because when you think about an idea, it's much more malleable. It can form and develop and change, and you can even go 180 on it if you are presented with some different information or evidence that says the contrary to your original idea. A belief is much more firm, and it has a lot of identity and ego and faith and other things attached to it, that if people sort of question the belief, you feel like they're questioning you and your purpose and who you are as a person. Whereas just an idea, I think it removes that kind of identity aspect to it and a lot of the ego attached to certain ways of thinking. And so I wish people would be a bit more open with that, because a lot of people probably, whether it's in science or in religion, they probably will be aware of the fact that it's not, or at least subconsciously aware, that it's not proven or it's not 100% definite. Yet they'll argue it as fact, and almost to the point of ridicule with somebody else if they don't subscribe to it. And it's like it's almost like if you're on a night out with people and you don't want to drink that night for whatever reason, you're not fancying a drink, but because you're out, because you're in a bar, you'll probably get pressured, depending on who you're with, but most schools of people will probably pressure you until you drink the beer. And there's that kind of peer pressure element to, belief systems and ideology as well. Like if you're in a room with 9 atheists, that's going to come up and they're going to want to know where you sit, like on the fence. And I'm pretty confident that if you don't align with their views, you're going to have some pretty rigorous questions thrown at you, or they're probably going to start to push you out of the circle, or, I don't like definites, and I don't like not being able to say I don't know, because there's something very empowering about saying I don't know. A lot of people feel that they need to follow it up with I don't know, blah, 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 or they won't even say it at all, yet I don't know. I've not seen it for myself. It's like on that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode where they do a trial, one of the many trials, and I think it's there's Dee, Mac, Charlie, Frank, and Dennis, and they all have like a little symbol that they can put up on the board, and then there's on the fence. I think it's, is evolution real, or something like that, or is it's something like that. And there's Mac's side and there's Dennis's side, which of course it's real. Mac's side is evolution is a load of old hooey or something, and then there's on the fence, and he puts everybody starting on the fence, and they're like, right, no, just to clarify, we're not starting on the fence, we're starting on the evolution side. And as silly as it is, and they're quite clever for writing it in this way, but Mac does a really good argument towards evolution, where he says to Dennis, like, have you ever seen these papers yourselves? Have you ever spoken with the scientists? Have you perused through the evidence yourself? And he's like, no. And he eventually backs him into a corner, and no. And he says, so you may be just saying that it's a leap of faith, or something like that. And that's kind of cool, because I'd argue that a large portion of the world that subscribes wholeheartedly wouldn't even begin to entertain any other worldview towards science, and modern science. I think they are going on faith. They've no research themselves, there's no evidence. People around them are subscribing to it. There's no questions that they're firing anyone's way, or analysis internally that they're doing. They're just believing an idea. And whether or not people at the very top of the scientific world, at the very top of our intellectual cap as a species, whether or not they have the evidence or not is absolutely irrelevant. Whether we have the evidence to prove it or not, that is irrelevant. It's you as an individual. How do you know? Like, have you poured through the data? Have you spoken with them? Have you actually looked it up in depth? Or are you just subconsciously subscribing to this idea and refusing to question it?
Yeah, mate, I think we are. I think it's one of them situations where actually I can hear sort of like an echo of myself. Can you hear that as well?
No.
I think it's just on my side. Oh no, it's stopped now. That's fine, sorry. I could just hear my voice like a second after. What we were saying there about science as like a sort of a religion sort of thing. I think it is,
so
basically
all of us, or at least most of us, just going on faith.
Yeah, because like most Western people are people that I know do definitely agree in some areas of science. Like there's definitely shining a light on maybe some of the ways that the world physically works, whatever. But in terms of it being another idea, I think like concepts and ideas like that can be joined together, sort of thing, to form a narrative. And you can have the idea of like a white hole, and you can have the idea of the universe that we observe today, and you can have a few stepping stones along the way, and then the path of least resistance is to join up those concepts with a narrative, and to say that because of cause and effect, because of rationality, because of logic, or whatever, science, whatever fundamental laws, ethical laws that they sort of apply, but then you can draw a narrative out of those things. And in the past, and in my experience, narratives tend to be bullshit and something that you proactively create and then externalize. onto the world, and actually those concepts and those ideas aren't real at all. And there seems to be another situation where science has now got a load of concepts, and it is really bloody good at finding out very definite concepts and getting ideas and concepts very fixed in the external world. And then they start to join it together with these narratives and these little stories about what happened and what they think happened and all the rest of it. And then I'm holding these ideas close to my chest about the origins of the universe, about all the deep questions about what happens when we die, out of this deep desire that people have to feel like there's a purpose and like there's a bigger plan and like they know what's going to happen and all the rest of the thing, all the shit they get from religion. And then when somebody attacks science, it is religion, and I think we hold it close to ourselves, like most people do, like Christianity or like their Islam or whatever it is. I don't know what your religion is. I think a lot of people hold those values really close, and like, especially in the West at the moment, it is fucking religion. And I'm starting to believe or disbelieve more and more and more in the Western model of things, not in science, not in definite concepts and stuff. I went to the doctors a few weeks ago, and I got low back pain, and I said to the woman, what actually really helps me is like ginger and turmeric in my morning smoothie, right? So I have all sorts in it and blueberries and shit like that. And she went, "All right, well, I suppose if it works for you, it can't do any harm, can it?" I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like ginger and turmeric? Come on!" Like curcumin is one of the fucking, like, the thing in turmeric. Curcumin is it's one of the most powerful. It's like the best anti-inflammatory, or the best thing. It's the best thing ever. Like curcumin is a fucking unbelievable drug. Like gingerol, the active ingredient ginger, obviously, it's imaginatively named. In combination with turmeric and black pepper, which increases the bioavailability of curcumin by like 400% or something. You take them all at once, and they're more powerful than something like 14 anti-inflammatory drugs that the US sell. Like, they're up there with the highest tier prescription drugs, and it's a fucking plant that goes in the ground. And the doctor not only didn't know about its benefits, but like, and I do exaggerate a lot about a lot of different things, and I'm bad for that sometimes. But I'm not exaggerating at all when I said that she definitely was very skeptical at the idea that food or ginger or any of those things in your diet would help an anti-inflammatory. She's very skeptical of the idea that one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories and one of the most powerful antioxidant compounds that humanity has ever discovered would have any effect on my body. And it was bullshit. And I was like, sometimes like someone just loses you. They seem quite cool and they're saying all the right things and they're doing the right stuff at the right time and they just tell you the right words at the right time. She just said the wrong things at the wrong time, and it was like, you're losing me. I mean, I don't believe you. I don't believe in the way that you're looking at it or the model or any of the stuff. Do you know what I mean? Curcumin, come on.
I think, I've not been to the doctors a tremendous amount of times. I don't go regularly, but across the course of a life, obviously, and as an adult even, I've been enough times to know how it works. And I have never once seen any doctor sit someone down and ask them sort of maybe 3 or 4 questions like, what's your diet, like your nutrition? What's your sleep pattern like, and how much sleep are you getting? And what's your exercise like, and how much exercise do you get? What do you do? Do you get fresh air? Do you go out, in the sun? Do you go on walks? How's your social life? Do you have a healthy social life? Do you maybe work too much? All these things. They just don't ask lifestyle questions whatsoever, but that makes up such a huge portion of the pie. I'm not writing off science at all. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want this to sound like some science bashing sort of fucking podcast or something. I think we're just trying to put across the idea that we need to question what we're told from a scientific point of view and critical think those ideas just as much as anything else. And I think when it comes to like going to the doctors or health and hospital, like such a large slice of that pie chart is made up through your lifestyle and cannot be affected as significantly by taking a pill every day that you then have to take a second pill every day for, and a third because of other symptoms and
for the side effects. Yeah.
And they're so quick to find out what the symptoms are and how they can mask those symptoms, rather than wanting to do tests and really diagnose the root problem and try and solve that underlying cause of the issue in the first place, whether that be mental, you know, through your lifestyle, through your diet, through your sleep. Just there are so many questions that need to be asked, you know,
Yeah.
and they're just not all interested. They just want to cover up the symptoms and stop them rather than trying to actually get to the root of the problem and cure it.
Yeah. I agree, mate. I think that's unfortunately how it is. Again, it seems like a cynical way of looking at it, but it's pretty much not. It's just how they work. It's all money and stuff in it, especially in America. Not too bad in the UK because the NHS, obviously. I do think though that I don't. The only way you can truly know something, or the only ways that I've ever convinced myself that I do truly know things, is empirically, and it's through directly experiencing them myself. Now, some of these things you can't, ever in a connection with all sorts of things. Like just there's a million different things that you can do right now, and I think you could, you should do your own experiment. You shouldn't believe what other people tell you, basically. And there's some obviously like I'm never going to go and view a white hole. I'm never going to be able to see it. If somebody else's life work has to be and observe something like that, and then show me the as close to the neutral objective data as possible, then I can learn from them and all the rest of it. But in terms of like doing experiments for yourself right now, you can pause this podcast and you can have a 30-minute nap. You can have a fruit and veg smoothie, a pint of water, 10 minutes exercise. You can have a wank or something. I don't know, try and have sex, stuff like that. And then just reevaluate at that. It's just 30 minutes, right? Like it's 3:20 in the afternoon now. By 4 o'clock, I could be a completely different person psychologically, like on the inside, because I can affect so many things within your area of influence so directly and so powerfully. Like if you are tired, the ultimate is rest. You know what I'm saying? Like if you need nutrition, I've got I've got total NutriGreens downstairs, which is 27 vegetables and a multivitamin and a pint of fresh water and all that sort of shit. Like you can absolutely, like you can change the inner world and the outer world just changes for you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the way you think about stuff inside can inform the reality that you view with your eyes on the outside, and there's no barrier between them two. Within 30-40 minutes, by 4 p.m. this afternoon, you could be a completely different fucking person by doing one thing out of all of those little things in your life. Like just there's like 30 minutes exercise will make me a different person completely.
Absolutely, man. I went to the gym this morning, and you know, I wasn't in an irritable mood, but I was kind of, I don't know, something wasn't quite right, and I wasn't sure why. Like I wasn't quite feeling it today, even though the sun was out, and you know, I just couldn't really be arsed with today for whatever reason. And I got to the gym, and you know, you get there, and I was a little bit lethargic, and I was like, you could easily slip into that. Right, well, I'm just going to do something light today because I'm not really feeling it. But you know, you find the right piece of music to put on, you find the right podcast to listen to, or something inspirational to read, or something like that, and you just fucking get on with it. It's all about the consistency and the discipline. And then once I started feeling my way into the sets and stuff, like after an hour, sort of an hour and a quarter in the weights room, and I had absolutely like I couldn't walk out of there with my head held up. Like I was done, like covered in sweat, like breathing heavily. There was even a couple of grunts towards the end of the set, but fucking so what? Stop worrying about how you look in the mirror or how you're going to fucking appear to everyone else. Just fucking push yourself to the absolute maximum and go for it. Like you shouldn't be leaving there with excess energy. And then I sat in the sauna again for as long as I could, which obviously not until the point where you're going to have any health concerns or anything like that, but it was about probably 12, 15 minutes, something like that in the sauna. And then there's one of them showers that you can come to, like not an actual shower, but just them rainfall ones, the ceiling ones that just blasts out absolutely freezing cold water. And I stood under that for about 5 or 10 minutes, maybe like 8 minutes or something like that. Make sure every single body part that I'd been blasting, particularly back today, got a real dose of that horror, that fucking freezing horror from above. And I just stood there and I got into some real weird Zen state and like, you know, just this kind of mindful chill where I wasn't thinking about anything. In fact, I'm trying just to stay in there for as long as I can. Just again, like the gym and like the sauna, and there, just pushing yourself further than you would do if you just sat at home on the sofa watching Netflix or something like that. And after that heavy workout and that transition between hot and cold like that, I felt incredible. And I started to sort of review like my morning and how I didn't have any spark to it. And you start attaching all this unnecessary meaning to all different elements of your life. Like just thinking, oh, that person walked past me and they give me a bit of look. Oh, fucking, I bet they have. Start just mumbling about people, or someone said something and it didn't quite appear right to me. I wonder if they've got none of that. Just get that out of your head. Just go exercise. Go do whatever to exactly change your inner world, and your outer world completely changes. I walked back with a skip in my step. Fucking listening to some music. Came back, made a list of all the next times I'm going to go to the gym, and made sure that I knew what I'd be doing and all that. So it's sort of visualizing beforehand makes it much more likely that that's going to occur now. And yeah, it was so easy. Like, obviously it was very difficult. Like, there were many times in there where I thought I could stop, but carried on going. So it's not easy in that respect. But in terms of just, it's kind of, we think that with these really, really complex organisms, and obviously we are, but in comparison to everything else on the planet, we think we're this superior being with these big old brains, and we can just sit and talk and talk about philosophy and space and science, but we don't have to do the basic shit like consider what we're eating and push ourselves like a fucking ape in the gym, and compete and push and fight and sweat. Like, we think that we don't have to do all of that because we're some elevated higher consciousness sort of, we just work and we get shit done and we write stuff down and we type stuff on the internet. Like, no, you have to do all the other stuff as well, idiot. Like, it's just, I think
it's like you've got many faces, you know what I mean? And there's like many different aspects of your personality where in a certain circumstance, you are a certain person, you act a certain way, or you do a certain thing. And I think through whatever experience I've had in my life, or meditation is another one I didn't mention, actually, like transcendental meditation for a bit. I know you do it in the shower, but I've got I sit, or I've got like a quiet area sort of thing, and I put earplugs in and stuff like that, and like incense and stuff. It's kind of well, it's not a shrine or anything like that, but there's an area in my office basically where I go and sit. But that sort of thing, to sort of become aware of the different faces, the different person that you are in different situations. And like in the gym, I very much heavily call upon some sort of like an animalistic, like, this person's going to hurt my family sort of mindset, where I'll be stood, like, I work at home obviously, but I'll be stood in a tank top just listening to music 10 out of 10, and then like growling at kettlebells, you know what I mean? Or like just getting proper zoned in because no one hears me. Like, it doesn't matter what I fucking do. And then I just lose it. You get completely in it, and you can call upon those faces now because you're aware of them or whatever. And they sort of, there's a sort of an effect, like a lensing effect, if you want, of being like a self-aware, maybe like an introspective person, to really draw your conscious attention to some of those things, so that it drags them out of subconscious into conscious, so that you can affect a control over them, sort of thing. And in that sort of a situation, it's good to be introspective when you're listening to music or a podcast, or to be able to listen, as a skill to listen, which is massive. But in the gym, that's not going to help you. When you're lifting weights, obviously you want that fucking screaming little ape man that's trying to fight and fuck and shit like that. You're like, you invite him in right now. And I think, again, time and time again, you start to see that happen, and it's like, well, what am I then? Like, what if you remove all that stuff that I know is either not real or bullshit, or just evolution, or some intrinsic part of like the human body? Like, what am I? And what do those deeper questions say? What can I infer from these things, and all the rest of it? And it gets into a really deep place. But definitely, I've sort of noticed more and more that you can just, like, there's certain signs and symbols and cues that you can use to like call forth that little ape man to go and like throw a 20 kettlebell around. And one of them for me is like a pre-workout, or like loud music, or whatever it is. But you have to appease that personality, or that thing. You have to give it an opportunity to show its face, and then it often will. Or, if I want my dogs to come in from outside, you give them a treat, sort of thing. There's little metaphorical signs and symbols that you can do and you can use to invoke certain things in certain situations. And again, if you remove the concepts and the ego and everything from it, it's just, this is what I need. This is who I need to be right now. Like, I'm malleable. I'm sort of, your personality can become a sort of like a liquid, if you want, that can take the shape of anything that you're doing at the time.
Yeah,
and that's one of the greatest gifts of being introspective, I suppose. When being somewhat, and again, it sounds a bit egotistical, but somewhat self-aware, and some of the stuff that I do, and you do as well. I wish more people were like that, because obviously you can just, you can. I think it's a Bruce Lee quote, actually. I'm probably hashing it real bad, but it was like, be like water, be formless like water, so that when when you need to be a cup, you can take the shape of a cup. If you need to be a square, you can take the shape of a square. That sort of shit. Like now, after you've transcended, and again, transcendence. These are all these words have got so much fucking extra meanings and shit. But yeah, after a time, you can become sort of liquid and then reapply yourself consciously to new situations and all that.
Yeah, definitely. And like you were saying about you're going to just choose the person that you're going to be for that situation, like be malleable. And there's a lot of tools that you can get to become that crazy ape-like man in the gym, because that's the guy that I want to be. I don't want to leave anything there when I'm coming home. And I've been going to the gym on my own a lot lately, but that's pretty much just because of my working hours and pattern and that sort of stuff recently. But normally I'd go with like a friend. And when you go with sort of somebody else who's similar to you, probably a similar size to you, lifting similar amounts of weights to you, and you go with somebody like that to the weights room, there's an absolute definite level of competition that's happening. And I'm not saying like it's not overtly there, it's not really talked about, but even just subconsciously, if you're on rep 8 out of 10 and you've just seen them hit 10, but you're really struggling, I want to get 11. Because I want to do more. And that a lot of people, especially people who are intellectual types, will sort of look at that as, oh, the Neanderthal ape-like competitive sort of primal part of us, like we don't need that anymore. And I'd be like, yeah, when I'm at work or when I'm having conversations like these or when I'm with my girlfriend, I definitely don't need that side of me. But when I'm in the gym, it's a tool that I can access and I can pick it up and use it. It's absolutely there. It's a tool that I can and will and do use often. So it's going to make me push myself harder. So why would you not use that tool? You don't have to attach it to your identity. That's not who you are. Just because in that moment you've been competitive, it doesn't necessarily make you a competitive person.
You can, those two things aren't related, are they?
No, like if you need, the best job to hang up a picture and stick a nail in the wall is a hammer. But if your society kind of doesn't really use hammers and doesn't think they're particularly necessary in conversation because that's very violent, like, yeah, you don't need it in the conversation, but when I'm hanging up that picture, I'm going to smash it in with that hammer. And so why would you not use that tool in the gym? And you can apply that to almost anything. Just like you say, be like water, almost apply yourself like a liquid, and you get to choose in what situation, which beaker you're going to fill up, which shape are you going to take.
That's the one, man. I think because you act a certain way in a certain situation doesn't mean that it doesn't say anything about you overall. Whereas if you were nasty to one person once, they would go away thinking that you were a nasty human being. And it's obviously not like that. They saw one of your many faces, you know what I mean? Or one of your many personalities that, whatever. It's a part of it. And I think that it's quite easy to say that if like you're a dickhead to one person once, or like in a certain, like most human beings feel all the emotions, like all negative and all positive, and there's no point in denying any of it. We all feel jealousy. We all feel not happiness and fulfillment and everything else. We feel most of the negative ones as well. And at some point in your life, and if you find a situation that jealousy is a good one, really, if you find yourself being jealous, it doesn't mean you're like a jealous person. Do you know what I mean? We all, that we all feel those emotions, and like to say that some forms of human expression are good or bad, or that some forms and even the positive ones, even some of them are better than others, is a judgment. And judgments don't exist in the real world. Do you know what I mean? It's just a certain way. It's a way of being. And because I was a dick or I was aggressive to this person, that or whatever, I was perceived that this had happened in a certain situation. You can't, if you extrapolate that to a worldview about me or about you or about that person, that is you creating a story out of nothing that doesn't exist. It's just another narrative that you've told yourself, another part of someone's identity that you either perceive or or whatever it is. It's that entire mess of things again. And none of that stuff. No, it doesn't seem to. It might inform a worldview, but it's not positive and it's not good. It doesn't benefit you in any way to start thinking of people like that. I think actually, if there is a default mode that I've fallen into that's been the most beneficial, it's compassion, or I've sort of a loving kindness for people. Because if someone's a knob to you, there's a good chance that they're wounded themselves and all the rest of it. So like, yes, we all have the many faces, yes, and like, unfortunately, we do come we are a product of his environment. Like certain things that happen to us, you can sort of pass on. People that abuse children or whatever, their children often grow up or have a higher rate of doing the same thing onto other people, and we sort of pass on in that way. That you can impart somebody with a certain, if all emotions were sort of a vibrate or a frequency or a vibration or something, or a resonance, that you can keep that inside you somehow, and you can pass it off onto other people. And that's all well and good because that's often subconscious. But if you're aware of that process and you know that's what you're doing, I said it before, and I'm fucking broken record with it, but you have a moral obligation as an intelligent person to efficiently and correctly utilize those different faces of the personalities that you have in certain situations. Like the gym's a perfect example because it is that little animal man, that frightened little monkey man who needs to eat and fuck. Like you can call upon him really, really easily, and it's one of them. But that does not mean anything about your worldview, or or like what you are, or these little stories about your identity and your ego and all the rest of it. Like all that, because you repeat the same words again and again, and like, it's going to suck in a lot of your attention. You know what I mean? To constantly be worrying about various things, but you've got an obligation, I reckon, as an intelligent person. If you know that's the process, you know that's what you like, you know that's how you're going to act, you know roughly what impact your actions are going to have. And whether, and again, forget about whether that's positive or negative. You do have an obligation to not harm other people, to not to interfere or any of those things. Like there are some sort of like ethical rules that do follow on from that, and it all comes down to basically compassion for me.
Yeah, and I think the realization of each sort of emotion that you're going through or mindset at that moment is key. That's the key moment, because it's not the fact that you were being jealous or, someone about a girlfriend or a piece of work that you've done or a friend or anything like that. And your first reaction is X. If your first reaction is to go into monkey man mode or be jealous or be angry, you need to check, just analyze. And every time that you do that, realize, actually, is this the best course of action? And so once you've noticed yourself being jealous, now you have a choice. Do you act on it? Do you say something? Do you say something rude? Do you receive that negative emotion from wherever it comes, the brain signals, externally, wherever, and then do you increase that and send that back out into the world? Like, do you just sort of use that as fuel to then create it and make it bigger and continue it? Or do you use that as fuel to just take it inwards, take a moment before you react, before you send a text message, before you shout across somebody, or before you throw a fist, anything like that? Just think about what would be the most compassionate thing to do in this moment, what would be the smartest thing to do in this moment. If you could choose sort of retrospectively what you've done in previous moments, what did you wish you could do? Do that thing. It doesn't matter that you were jealous. It doesn't matter that you were angry or rude. It matters what you do once you've realized.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and again, as soon as you start to see it and you know that's what's gone on, people still make shit decisions. Again, it's just decisions, isn't it? It's one of them ones that might not appear like it's a decision. It appears less like a decision you're making if you're like less in control of your emotions, basically, than it, or some of this, there's going to be a pull to anger, or like a gravity towards anger or fear or anxiety that you have to consciously repel. And I think sometimes if your discipline is like level 7, do you know what I mean? Or like you've got a 7 out of 10 discipline, and then the pull to get angry for no reason is an 8 out of 10, you might not escape the gravity of that. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, that's where it all comes down to. It's observing things and then passing them through this filter you've got, and then realizing that actually you do have a control over them choices that you make. And then it's like all conscious, just decisions. And again, it really helps me just to take all the positives and negatives out of it and some of the judgments and that. But I wish more people were sort of like that, or at least I saw or met more people that were like that in their actual lives, because like quite a few people I know are pretty much just on autopilot. Just things are happening to them. Do you know what I mean? It's a very reactive mindset. Whereas for me, meditation is one of the biggest ones. Transcendental meditation. It sort of shifted, even just on like, even in really simple terms, a lot of my personalities, a lot of the me's, a lot of the faces that I show the world or whatever. A lot of them have become like proactive and not reactive. and that has been such a big shift in my life, and prevention and not cure and shit like that. There's a million different ways it manifests, but just realizing what that's going on, being self-aware, having that second to consider your actions and your thoughts before you act on them, and all the rest of it, that can shift your mindset fundamentally from like reactive to proactive. And then that is one of the most empowering states you can be in. Like, we're ridiculously powerful, and not that you become powerful or anything like that, but you just realize, you know what I mean? It's a stripping away of everything else. Like in esotericism, what would be called, like in the esoteric, they say that sort of enlightenment isn't like the top of the mountain. It isn't the summit of a peak somewhere. It's actually the stripping away of everything, and what you're left with after you remove all the ego, all the experiences that you've had, all the rest of it, and what is left is that the highest self, your best intentioned self, the watcher, the Atman, the prana energy, whatever they call it. Everything's got a different one. It's God in Christianity and all the rest of it. Like, there is a part of you that is God. The kingdom of heaven lies within man, and all the rest. Are it a lot of the time, and I think we've created these little stories in our lives. And again, to go back to the white holes, we create these narratives and these little theories and everything. And I think a big part of it, a big motivation for why we create these stories and narratives and themes, and we join the dots of these concepts together into bigger narratives, and we deny that there's chaos and entropy and everything all around us at all points, is to protect the ego from the truth of it, which is that you are an illusion. Nobody's in charge in the world. All your thoughts and feelings are not only ridiculous, but you can exercise for 30 minutes and they'll disappear. Mate, all of that, all that sort of shit. Like, that, it's the most terrifying thing imaginable for the human ego, that it doesn't exist. And not only that it doesn't exist now, that pretty much it's always been an illusion. And if you remove all that shit, what you're left with is the watcher, the consciousness, the part of you that just observes reality through your senses and through your body and all the rest. And if you can operate from that place more often in your actual life somehow, by whatever means it is, from making that shift internally, the world that happens in front of your eyes and not behind it will completely change in relation to that. Do you know what I mean? They're definitely connected. And that's why these mindset things have been so important for me, because you just see the world inside here becomes the world in front of your eyes. You know what I mean?
Definitely, man. And it's like, do you want to be a black hole or do you want to be a white hole? Mm-hmm. Like, do you want to absorb all matter and the light and the positive things, or do you want to just spray it out all over everything or everyone? But well,
like, hey, depends what time it is, the time of the day.
Yeah, if it's midnight,
just before bedtime, and I'm all about spraying. So.
Get that baby white hole making music. I think
Barry White.
Yeah, it's like
Barry Whitehall.
Ironic. I think
sex.
Yeah, dicks, barge poles, 10-inch telescope. Ejaculating. Sorry, I'm done. Black hole, reactive. White hole, proactive. Black hole spreading the fucking disease of people just being pissed off and angry and jealous and taking and wanting and me, I. That's the black hole. Or do you want to be somebody who walks around experiencing life like a white hole, like you're creating everything in front of you? And that's exactly why I think it's silly as fuck to subscribe to fate and destiny, especially if you subscribe to a fate and destiny that's in any way negative, because you can be the white hole, like, that's creating your reality around you. Like, yes. And even if not, and even if you can prove it on like ones and zeros and you can measure it, and you can do tests and you can measure that everything I've just said is wrong, so what? Like, who cares? Like, I think that I would still rather enjoy life a lot more if I'm walking around knowing that I can make kind or compassionate choices that affect those around me in a positive way. And I don't know, it's real fucking deep and cheesy and stuff, but like, I guess everyone's going to die. We're all going to die, right? But I would like to know or I like to think at least, that when I do die, when I'm no longer around my friends or my family or the people that I've, interacted with, I left what I'd found and the people that I'd found with something slightly more positive than they were when I first found them. Just when you go into the shop and the till, the person behind the till doesn't have what you want in stock, you now have a choice. You now have a decision. Do you take that person's day, which before you met them can be classed as zero or neutral, and do you then make that person's day worse or better? Do you take them to a +5 or -5, depending on how you react to a negative circumstance? It's easy to be happy and nice and fluffy when you're feeling good and when everything else around you is going great and you've got money and good things are coming to you. The real challenge is doing it when you're not feeling good and you can't be asked, or something bad has happened to you. Now try and react in a positive or a kind or a compassionate way, where you're leaving those around you better off than when you found them. I think that's the real challenge, or at least it's the goal for me.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I always seem to agree. Yeah, you can always make those choices, can't you? Always, I think it seems to come back to that nearly every time. And good and bad, don't think. I mean, it's like you can. I don't know. It seems to come back to that almost every time. I mean, you can always make these decisions, and yeah, leave people with more than you. Don't give, don't take, that sort of thing. There's a load of sort of concepts or little ideas that sort of really encapsulate it. But yeah, I agree, man. I think one of the most difficult things and again, the human ego, illusion or otherwise, like you do feel the feelings, you do feel what it feels is very real. And I think it's very unique that people, we know we're going to die. Do you know what I mean? Or like, it's very terrifying. And again, there's a lot of things that seem to terrify the human ego, and I'm no exception. But that we'll all say goodbye to each other one day. Not soon or whatever, but we will leave each other one day. Do you know what I mean? We will have to say goodbye at one point. And I think we know that. I think most people know they're going to die, and that everybody that they know is going to die. And at some point, you will have to say that goodbye, and that's terrifying as well. That you've there's a sort of it's almost burdensome to know that you will perish one day. But and again, it comes down to that choice again. Where you can be crushed by that everybody's going to die. You know, I'm not going to keep repeating it because it is a bit heavy. But you can be crushed by that. And you can, if you think about that, that is not going to help you or anybody, and that's not going to bring anything positive in whatsoever. So, what the choice in that situation is to live every day like to be as positive as possible, or to do as much as possible, to see as much as possible, to leave, well, like you said, to leave people with more than they started off with. And that's all it really comes down to, man. I think we're a bit more insignificant than we'd like to think, or at least the ego would like to think. But it does, at people's funerals, man, they don't say, "Oh, Ian had a really nice car." God damn, that car though. Oh, I mean, they're not going to say that sort of stuff about people. It's not about the priorities in society or whatever, material goods and all that sort of shit. Like, none of that matters.
He had $1 million in his bank account when he left us.
Like, 1 million. Yeah. Who's going to get that? There's a million things. It's all. I'm trying to think of examples, but it's mostly material stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, he had a beautiful house. Like, nobody fucking says any of that sort of stuff. It's always that you were like kind and compassionate and shit like that. And I was just, devil's advocate to my own argument. Even people that were sort of dickheads in real life, I suppose, you say nice things at a funeral, don't you? That sort of shit, man. You'll leave people with more than you take, and that's one of those situations where you see through how illogical like human emotions are and stuff like that. That like you can give and give and give, and it not really diminish you. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I've not got a finite resource of love or a finite resource of discipline or happiness, I can generate it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the creator of it, and I can go into the world armed with that energy that's infinite. That comes from a very infinite place. And I think that's probably the highest self, or like the deepest human consciousness or whatever. But it's like, no matter what, I'm regenerating that. It doesn't matter how negative or how positive I am. There's an infinite pool of that shit that I can call upon at pretty much any time. And that's the same for most people. That, and we've said it before as well, like, discipline's not and a finite resource. And I think that's a deep one, pretty much. That you'll never run out of love or compassion for people, and people hold it back like it's a precious item in Final Fantasy or something, and you wait until like the last few bosses so that you can burn through all your elixirs and shit like that. It's like, no, if you have it and don't use it, then it's fine, but it's not a finite. I mean, you're creating more of it all the time.
Yeah, I think people often apply sort of kindness and happiness and compassion and doing nice things to other people. They almost apply it like the same as money. You know, like they've got like a number of it left in their bank account, and they've kind of got to wait a bit until they get some more. And you know, I've got to use a lot of it for me, so I can't really use that much for you. And I don't even know this person, so why would I give them any money, i.e., happiness or energy or compassion? Like, yeah, that doesn't matter to me. Whereas, yeah, I think people should stop, like you say, it's a perfect analogy of having those things infinitely. It's not a finite resource. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to get going shortly, man.
Yeah,
Which is a real shame because this has been some awesome conversation.
Yeah,
very deep, got very deep very quickly. But I guess when you start talking about black holes and white holes, then it's going to get deep real quick. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot to go away with.
Yeah, well, we'll wrap it up now because I've got to go on some work as well. But my summary for the entire thing basically was just that modern science has become like a religion. And I'm starting to realize that if you don't understand something and yet you still accept it as the truth, you're only a believer and you don't know anything. You know what I'm saying? So there's a load of situations now where I'm seeing more and more and more that the beliefs that I hold very close about science and about the ideology of science, if you want, the entire thing, the full spectrum of stuff, is probably just a very similar belief to anybody else's religion. And there's a sort of bias from inside coming outward sort of thing that because I believe it, that must mean that it's true. It gives it more of a weight to other people and stuff like that. So that I'm seeing it more and more for what it pretty much is, which is like a religion. It's just a body of ways to interact with the world and a narrative, a literal creation story and stuff like that. It's exactly the same as anybody else's Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, all that sort of shit. So I'm starting to realize that that's some of the thoughts and opinions that I hold are almost religious, all based on faith, all based on just believing a concept I don't understand in any way.
Question everything. Like that's kind of what it comes down to, isn't it?
Yeah. Blanket across the board. Just have a look at it for yourself. Try and experience it for yourself as opposed to believing it. Yeah.
And that includes I was just going to say as well, the question everything idea and the analyzing everything, that doesn't just include things that aren't you. Like that doesn't include like ideas and belief systems and science and religion and other people and judging other people and questioning what they're doing, what right or wrong. Most of what you should be doing as well is questioning what you're doing and whether you're being a kind and compassionate person. So I think the idea is so applicable. Like us learning now that maybe we have been believing, like being a believer to the science religion and just going on faith without really using critical thinking and questioning things. I think that idea is a nice metaphor for yourself as well. Like, because a lot of people just go along thinking that maybe they are science in this analogy. They're the one that, you know, other people are all the other religions, and they will use critical thinking and they'll question them and they'll break them down and analyze their actions. But because they are science, because they are themselves, they're I, they don't apply those same critical thinking skills that we all have, and they don't question their own actions in the same way. And I think that, like you said, blanket approach, you should question everything, and that includes yourself and the things that you subscribe to.
Yeah. I think if you're going to point out a flaw in somebody else, you should pass it through yourself first. If you're going to apply harsh criticism to another person, apply it to yourself first. It's one of them is, you know, treat people how you want to be treated, isn't it?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, that's an awesome way to leave it.
Yeah, that was a cool, man. So next episode was Pokemon Go. You still want to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't really been playing it that much. You know, I was really into it for the first month or so upon its release, but because of that, I feel like I learned a lot about it. And we're not necessarily going to go into like the game mechanics and talk about the Pokemon itself or the game, but just the wider implications. Everybody knows about the hype. Everybody knows about this huge novelty and the nostalgia involved. And it just seemed to, you know, storm the world So I think there's a lot of things that we can really get stuck into there and analyze from a societal lens, from a personal lens, from lots of different angles. There's probably a lot to talk about with that phenomenon that was Pokemon Go. So I think we can do an episode on that next time, probably in the next few days to a week. We'll get one out with that.
Yeah, Sam, man. Well, I said I've not played it, so I'll be interested to know what you think about it and everything. Interested to listen to it and stuff, because from your perspective, playing it quite a lot, and mine from like probably not going to play it sort of thing. I'm excited to hear what you've got to say about it, basically.
Cool, man. Well, yeah.
Sweet. Well, it's been another awesome one, man. It's probably gone for a while, so really, really good one. And I say I'm looking forward to this Pokemon next, and then before you know it, we're going to have fucking 10 episodes, aren't we?
Definitely. All right, man. Well, take it easy.
All right. Sam, man. I'll see you in a bit.
Bye.